Hey everybody, I'm with my good longtime friend. We go all the way back to 1996. Heavens to Betsy. Alan Michaan, a great owner of the Grand Lake Theater and the Michaan's Auctions in Alameda Point. You got to check it out more than once. Seen of some of my best times and best stuff. So, Alan, great to see you, my friend.
Hey, Zenny, how are you?
I'm better for having you on to see and talk about Oakland and everything else. And so, Alan, hey, first of all, congratulations on the Grand Lake Theater being named one of the top 5 theaters in the world. I would say it's number 1 myself.
Well, actually, Variety magazine, which is all the show business people read it, they did an article which they entitled "The 21 Coolest Theaters in the World." And we were very proud that the Grand Lake was included amongst those. And it was the only thing in the Bay Area that was included on that list. So it was wonderful. It sparked a whole bunch of really nice newspaper articles and TV coverage in the local press, and brought us new customers, which is wonderful. Yeah. We always need new customers. Yeah.
And, hey, how, having said all that, which is super fantastic, what do you think of the new mayor? And then also, what do you think of, what do you want to see changed around there? Because we talked a lot about the changes and the crime and everything else. What do you say about where we are and what's going on now?
Well, in Oakland?
Yes, sir.
Okay, specifically Oakland. We have a new mayor. Our last elected mayor was busted by the FBI, and I don't know, there's all kinds of investigations and everything. But it was, I thought she was a terrible mayor.
Yeah.
Cheng Thao. And she was recalled. There was their recall campaign, and the voters said, nope, you're gone. We had an interim mayor for a few months, and then we had an election for a new mayor. And I am thrilled that our new mayor is Barbara Lee.
Yay!
Barbara Lee, as everyone knows, was long time in Congress. She was our local congressional representative for many years. I've worked with Barbara on a number of really great projects, including when we did relief for the hurricane in New Orleans a few years ago, and we raised all kinds of everything: food, supplies, clothes, toys. We filled up 8 semi-trucks full of donations, which we gathered in the front of the Grand Lake. It was a great day. But Barbara's most shining moment in my mind was after 9/11, when everyone in Congress rushed to declare war without us even really knowing who we were declaring war on. Barbara Lee was the one and only vote against it. It was a courageous thing for her to do. It resulted in a lot of people saying terrible things about her and calling her a communist, and she received death threats. But she was the only one that was right. Going to war against Iraq was one of the worst foreign policy decisions that this country ever made. It was a terrible thing. It was a war crime. Sadly, war criminals Bush and Cheney are still on the loose and have not paid for their crimes, and I think that's a crime in and of itself. But Barbara Lee as mayor, we have great optimism that she's going to do wonderful things for our city.
And not only that, you have not only Barbara, but you've got Rowena, and as your at large, and then you've got my friend who actually was our client. That was Charlene Wang is your new District 2 council member.
Yes, she is. She was voted for the council, and for a while, we had up on the Grand Lake marquee, vote for Barbara Lee for mayor, vote Charlene Wang for District 2 council, and we got our wish.
Yes,
it worked.
And she's outstanding. I'm telling you. So hey, happy days are here again, and everything is looking up. And on top of all of that, you have sinners.
We have sinners. Yeah. We are so proud that Ryan Coogler is an Oakland filmmaker, someone who lived and grew up in Oakland. And his first movie was, of course, Fruitvale Station, which we proudly presented when it came out.
Yep.
But Ryan has emerged as really one of the top filmmakers in the world. And his new picture, Sinners, it's a masterpiece. You have to see it. I can't even really describe it. I saw it last night for the second time. Really loved it.
And the fact that you saw it a second time is enough for me.
And the great thing about it is he wrote it as well as directed it. I mean, he wrote that whole thing, and that's pretty amazing. And he's a big fan of the Grand Lake. He's always talking about the Grand Lake. He grew up seeing movies at the Grand Lake. In so many interviews where they interview him, he says, "Oh, Grand Lake Theater is my favorite theater in the world." And he prevailed upon Warner Brothers to supply us with a 70 millimeter print of Sinners.
Oh, so wow.
Warner's only made 5 70 millimeter prints of that movie. They're very, very expensive to make. I mean, today everything is digital. Our movies come in a little, like a cassette. It's a computer hard drive. We load it into our server, and that's how we show the movie. 70 millimeter is so rare, and it's very, very special, and it's great that we have 70 millimeter print of Sinners, and we're doing gangbuster business. We're filling the theater up every day, and people are loving it. So we're really very, very happy with the results of that movie.
Hey, it just comes to mind this question. When I think about what he's doing, I'm talking about Ryan Coogler. Now, why is it I think now of Orson Welles? Is he deserve right at this point to be in that category?
I think so. I think you could put him at the very top. He's a young guy. This is the beginning of his career. Who knows, how far he's going to go in the future. I mean, he's now considered an A-list director.
Yep.
All the studios are clamoring for him. And I think he could do any project that he wants, and he's just starting. And that's the exciting thing about Ryan. And, we're very proud of him in Oakland.
And it's great that, if you think about Fruitvale Station or Black Panther or now Sinners, he always makes Oakland in some way a focus of what he's doing. Isn't that really nice?
Yeah. And he's we hosted him for a special premiere before the movie opened, and it was a rental from Warner Brothers for him and his invited guests. He had almost 600 people there.
Wow.
And he spoke about the film, and he did a Q&A afterwards, and it was a really wonderful evening.
Hey, since I have you on here, and I know that the new mayor is going to see this, what changes would you like to see around, and also for Charlene Wang, the new council member, what changes would you like to see where you're at Grand and Lake Park, which is the address for Grand Lake Theater?
Well, I would certainly like to see parking improvements. There, all of the parking meters around the theater on the street are 2-hour meters.
Wow.
Movies are longer than 2 hours.
Wow.
So that doesn't do us any good. So we really do most of our business now in the evening when the meters stop running at 6 p.m. We do have a parking lot across the street under the freeway where you can park for up to I think 6 or 8 hours. So that is good. I think
satisfied with the lighting under there?
There's lighting under there.
I mean, are you satisfied with the brightness? Are you satisfied with the candle power?
Yeah,
so I think it should be bright.
I don't know what the candle power is, but there's lighting under there. Of course, Oakland, suffers from reputation for crime, and I know that Barbara Lee is going to be working on that. There are a lot of issues in Oakland, like any big city, really. Oakland is not unique with problems, but we're the last mayor didn't seem to do anything about anything, and so.
Well, no, she did, Alan. She did one thing.
What did she do?
Make sure her own pockets were lined.
Oh well, She didn't do anything for us.
No,
she didn't do anything for the citizens. So we're optimistic. We're optimistic that that Barbara Lee will continue to fight for us. That she'll be able to still steer federal funds back to Oakland, even though with what's going on in Washington and the new administration, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But I feel very pleased that Barbara did prevail, and that she's our new mayor.
And Councilmember, my good friend Charlie Wong, please have a sit down with this man. Go to the theater. Alan's a mensch, and he'll take you to the Thai restaurant next door.
We ate there last night.
Yeah, see, and I highly recommend that place. And
Yeah.
Alan turned me on to it. Thank you very much, Alan. Much appreciated.
Great.
So let's turn our tables to Berkeley and talk about the UA Theater.
No, it's a sad situation, Zenny. You know, Berkeley.
Excuse me.
I started my theater business in Berkeley. I built the Rialto Theater in 1972 when I was 19 years old. And over the years, I ran a number of locations in Berkeley. You know, I had the Rialto and I had the North Side for a while. I had the Sunset up on Telegraph Avenue. I ran the Oaks Theater for a number of years, and I also ran the Fine Arts Theater on Shattuck. And then in 1989, I built the Shattuck Cinemas, which was an 8-screen complex of miniature movie palaces. It was a beautiful, beautiful theater. I ended up being in partnership with Pacific Theaters during the construction of that theater because my bank at the time, Bank of America, jerked the rug out from under me, and I ended up having to take a partner. The partnership wasn't great. I allowed Pacific Theaters to buy me out. I didn't want to be a partner anymore. So they bought the theater from me. They bought my half of it. Later on, they sold it to Landmark. And Landmark ran the theater for a number of years. And last year, I guess their lease ran out.
That was Gary Meyer, right?
Well, Gary Meyer retired from Landmark quite a few years ago, but I still see him all the time. He's a friend of mine. He lives a few blocks from the Grand Lake, so he's always over there. But Landmark's lease ran out, and I guess the developer bought the building to build apartments, and they tore the Shattuck down. And the theater was demolished not long ago, just a few months ago. And now the developer apparently doesn't have the money to move forward. And instead of the Shattuck Cinemas being there, we have a big hole in the ground, vacant lot right there on Shattuck Avenue. It's so sad. So Berkeley at one time was so known for theaters. On the next block was the United Artists Theater. Mm-hmm. Now, the United Artists Theater was built in 1932, and it was built by a company that was formed by a partnership of Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, D.W. Griffith, and a couple of other Hollywood luminaries, and Douglas Fairbanks Jr. They were the United Artists, and they built a spectacular theater in L.A., which was now known as the Los Angeles. And the second theater they built was the United Artists Theater in Berkeley. And this theater was a spectacular Art Deco interior. It is in the same style as the Oakland Paramount, not as opulent as the Oakland Paramount, but it is a beautiful Art Deco theater. And it was 1,800 seats with a very, very large stage facility and fly loft. I mean, it was built to accommodate any kind of performances. Really, really just deluxe theater. Well, in 1974, United Artists, the company that owned the building, decided that they would multiplex it. And this was when a lot of these big old theaters were getting chopped up. So they created 2 auditoriums on the ground floor, 2 more up in the balcony. But the people in Berkeley at that time, the people who were administering the city, had the wisdom to require that the theater development be done in a way that didn't disturb all of the architectural glory of the building. So these 4 new auditoriums were really created within the shell of the large cavernous auditorium. So all of the ornamentation was pretty much left intact. Later on, the United Artists Company, which later became Regal, built a couple of small auditoriums on the stage and in the lobby area. Again, not really disturbing the fabric of the building. So they ended up with 8 screens there. Well, during COVID, big companies like United Artists had terrible financial difficulties because they were tied into so many expensive leases all over the country. Because when you have, I think they had several thousand locations, and it devastated them. So they closed a lot of theaters, and shortly after reopening after COVID, they closed this theater. Now this left Shattuck Avenue now with the loss of the Shattuck cinemas with no theaters, no theaters at all. And a developer purchased the United Artists Theater property for $7 million from Regal and has been working to demolish the building to build a high-rise apartment building. Now, if you've been in Berkeley lately and you go down Shattuck Cinemas, it's unrecognizable from what it was. I mean, if you go down Shattuck Avenue, it's unrecognizable from what it used to be. It's all these nothing but apartments. Now, we know that housing is important, and there is still a housing shortage, but there are many places that housing could be built, and this doesn't have to be one. Perfect place right now for a new apartment building where the Shattuck Cinemas used to be, and it's now a gaping hole. This building is a listed landmark on the California Register of Historic Places, and it has been deemed eligible for the National Register of Historic Places, which is a huge honor. It's a National Register eligible building. It is ripe for restoration. It can be made into a performing arts center to serve Berkeley and the East Bay community. It's literally right next to a BART exit, a BART station. You could take BART to downtown Berkeley, walk up the steps, and not have to cross the street to get into this theater. So it's beautifully located. The developer is saying, "Oh, we're preserving it. We're going to preserve the facade and the lobby." Big deal. To me, that's just a slap in the face of what was once there. The Berkeley Zoning Board approved this project without proper CEQA review. CEQA is a California law, and it requires proper review when you have a historic building. They bypassed the historic nature of this building, and they basically deemed it not worthy of preservation. Berkeley's so-called Historic Advisory Board, same thing. They deemed it not worthy of preservation. It is probably the best building in Berkeley. It is a really top-notch movie palace like the Grand Lake. It could easily be restored for performing arts. But the city of Berkeley, I joined a group called SaveTheUABerkeley.org, and go to our website, and you can read all about it. I joined this group because I felt that the theater should be preserved and that my voice could help in that struggle. Last week, there's a special meeting of the city council because our group was able to raise the $5,000 it took to get them to listen to us in the council meeting. We tried to overturn the decision by the zoning authorities that would allow the developer to raise the theater. And basically, we had many speakers. Our arguments were excellent. The lawyer that we hired made an excellent argument about the city violated the law in the way they approved this. And yet the council didn't even listen to us. They basically sat there, and then at the end of 3 hours of discussion, unanimously voted to allow the developer to demolish this National Register eligible building. The last place on Shattuck Avenue that would have been something that could stimulate the whole downtown. And give people a reason to go to Shattuck Avenue again. we used to have 25 movie screens in that Berkeley corridor. Now there's nothing left. And if students who attend UC Berkeley, if they want to go see a movie, they've got to go to Oakland or the one last little theater that's open, which is the Elmwood on College Avenue.
Yep.
Which is a couple miles away.
So Alan, I had a date there. I saw THX 1138, and the clock would work orange.
Okay.
That theater.
Well, what they've done, what these so-called civic leaders have done, is they have betrayed the voters of Berkeley, and they have basically turned their backs on historic preservation and the downtown plan, which was something that was voted into a number of years ago on a ballot measure and overwhelmingly approved, that calls for preserving theaters and calls for stimulating growth or stimulating options for people to do at night. You know, so Berkeley has made the same horrible mistake as did the civic leaders of San Francisco when they allowed the Fox Theater, the most magnificent theater ever built, to be demolished in 1963. Today, you have communities all over the country that have rescued their old movie theater buildings and have now become focal points for the downtown, focal points for civic pride. And there's so few of these left. And the United Artists Theater in Berkeley is an Art Deco gem that could be restored, should be restored. And what makes this especially egregious is that this year, 2025, marks the 100-year centennial, the 100-year anniversary since the Paris Exposition of 1925 that really launched the Art Deco craze all over the world. And today, this year, you will see museum shows, you will see special programs, you'll see special auctions, exhibits celebrating the Art Deco centennial. This year is the year of the Art Deco centennial. It's being celebrated all over the world. And in Berkeley, it's being celebrated with cultural vandalism and ignoring the value of what I believe is the finest building in Berkeley. It's a disgrace. The city council should be ashamed of themselves. And I really think that a proper investigation should be made of why this was done. And that all of the proper safeguards for a landmark building like this were ignored, and that this terrible city government in Berkeley is allowing this to happen instead of putting a pause on any possible demolition and seeking a way to raise the funds to buy this property from the developer and to restore this theater properly and let it become a performing arts center for East Bay, just as the Oakland Paramount is. You know what bothers me about this is that, Alan, as I look around here, I think of a legislation that passed in January of 2021 that I told you about, AB 464 Mullen. And AB 464 Mullen allows an area designated as like, for example, let's say that this area that I'm panning around, designated as an enhanced infrastructure financing district. Well, the property taxes from this district will go to a public financing authority. And that public financing authority will have an infrastructure financing plan. The rehabilitation of this business, which was impacted by the pandemic, as were theaters, as you know, would be a perfect candidate to this day for renovation under that raison d'etre, and yet it was never used. In fact, AB 464 Mullen, and indeed Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District law in California, considering that it's called the Sun of Redevelopment, is the most underused legislation for economic development in California's history. And for it to be unused, and yet for this facility, this beautiful facility,
to be looking at the fate that it's looking at is criminal, absolutely criminal.
I couldn't agree more. And the way that the zoning authorities ignored the requirement under CEQA, which is California Environmental Quality Act, to examine and take into consideration the historic merits of this building. You know, they basically ignored that, and they gave the developer an exemption to the CEQA requirements. And our lawyer that we brought to that hearing basically said that what they did was illegal, and yet the council turned a deaf ear to all of our arguments, all of the thousands of citizens that want to see this building preserved, and made no effort whatsoever. You know, their question was, well, who's going to pay for the restoration? Well, you can't start raising money and making plans for a restoration while a building is still fighting. We're fighting to keep it from being demolished.
And Alan, if I may, that's what gets me. AB 464 Mullen was written to pay for that sort of thing. We're talking about, you know, that. So, you know, what bothers me, this gentleman or woman's question of saying he didn't really describe why the theater district wasn't restored in the first. Well, he did. He said it was a matter of cost. And what I'm saying, and I've said this again and again and again, is legislation is there to use it, all right, but it's not being used. This gentleman or woman, I don't know, offers the CEQA is being abused. We shouldn't have to sue CEQA for stuff like this. They're using CEQA to complain about noise. Look here, okay, look, that's a side thing, all right? I'm not even going to get into that. That's off the track because it's an economic development issue. And too many people they go only to the design part aspect of it. And what happens, Alan, is, and this happens in this case too, it gets trapped. This is about someone's business. The business didn't get the aid it needed. And not only that, the legislation is designed to aid businesses like this one. And yet it's being unused. And in that area, arguably, parts of it, Alan, you'll agree with me, are blighted, right? They look awful. Yeah. You know, and yet they sit there, and that law sits there, and it's not used, and we elect the same people to do this again and again and again. We love the folks, they're Democrat, they have the right idea, but they tend to not want to help business as they should. And that's got to end. These businesses need financial help at an era where incomes are being damaged because of outsourcing of jobs, which we're now in the third generation of, and I can go on and on and on. But government is designed to be there to stop market forces. And here's a market force that's damaging the existence of a theater. AB 464 Mullen was written to stop that, and it's not being used, Alan. And it's a crime. It's a total crime.
Yeah. Well, there was just the bottom line was no one within the city made any effort whatsoever to see about any alternative other than the demolition. They didn't explore it at all. Nobody talked about various ways to fund it. And the reason that it wasn't up to Regal didn't want to restore it for performing arts because that's not what they do. And when Regal sold the property, they were just scrambling to get money to sell to pay, to keep their company afloat.
Right.
As, a lot of companies got so badly hurt in COVID, and
right.
you shut down a business for 14 months.
That's why AB 464 Mullen was written to help that.
But the point is, we have a building. The point here is that here's a building that can be restored to being a glorious civic asset, and no effort is being made to even look into it. And that the city of Berkeley, people that have the power, rushed to demolish it. They're rushing to demolish this building. And it's absolutely, I don't know, to me, it's cultural vandalism at its utmost.
It's criminal.
It is criminal. I think it is criminal. And it's something that years from now, if they are allowed to demolish it, we replace it with just another high-rise apartment building. And yeah, housing's important. There's a housing element study from the city of Berkeley that show places where housing could be developed. And this lot was not one of them. It's not on that list. And this should be preserved. And
again, yeah, and again,
this will go down in history as a tremendous civic failure of the responsibility of the council and the zoning commissions and the Historic Advisory Board is a failure of their responsibility to the public. And I think
Absolutely.
it's shameful. It is shameful.
And shameful that this is considered use issue, whereas you mentioned the business has been suffering. That's an economic development issue. We're talking about people who have jobs that work there, even cleaning jobs. You have people that have contracts there. They don't have that anymore. And you know, here's the news flash, folks. It doesn't have to be that way. This legislation was designed to combat market forces. That's what government is supposed to do. And for those who, you know, don't understand that, okay, and this person speaks when the person writes East Oakland's full of what did you write here? Full of old theater buildings and lots that are gone now. And it doesn't have to be that way, my friend. It doesn't have to be that way. All these theaters can be preserved by the use of an existing legislation, not new, AB 464 Mullen, and getting the city to actually use it through an economic development arm. This is an economic development issue, Alan. It really is. And businesses are being suffered by that. And it's malpractice, it's government malpractice. This is where government doesn't work, and why all around, it doesn't matter if it's here or Oakland or any place else in California, California looks the way it should. It does. It doesn't have to. I'm telling you, it doesn't have to. If Gavin hired me to straighten out this problem, I'll tell you within 1 month I'd straighten it out, okay? I only need 1 month, Gavin. Just one. I'd straighten it out. This has got to stop in its tracks. You know? And folks, there is something to be doing about it. Don't leave my channel either. You get back here. Get your butt back here. That's wrong. You know what I'm talking about. I know who did that. Okay.
Well, anyone that wants to know more about the theater and the history of the theater, the website savetheuaberkeley.org is really a wonderful resource. It got a lot of beautiful pictures of opening night, star-studded civic celebration in 1932, and it's all there for restoration. When they added the auditoriums there, they really didn't disturb the original decor that much, and it can all be restored for a lot less than it's cost to restore a lot of other theaters around the country. You know, a wonderful example is the Lowe's Kings Theater in Brooklyn, New York. And Lowe's Kings was one of the 7 Lowe's Wonder Theaters that they built. Another one was the Lowe's Jersey City. And these theaters were spectacular, unbelievable, spectacular theaters. And they sat empty for decades. The Lowe's Kings was recently restored at a cost of $80 million, which was a very expensive restoration. But it is now one of the jewels of movie palaces in our country, something that will never, ever, ever be replicated again. And the United Artists is worth saving. And, you know, I urge everyone who's listening to this to you know, call the city council, call the mayor, write letters to the editor, make noise, because what they've done here is wrong. And it really just, you know, it should at least be protested.
And they're less than $1,000 away from their goal, Alan. They're less than $1,000 away from their goal, by the way. I'm looking at it here. Goal was $18,000. They raised $17,097. So, folks, you can help close the gap. It's all there.
Anyway,
you know,
be aware of it. Write a letter. Speak out.
Yes.
That's all you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. And go to the movies. Wherever you are. Go to the movies.
And this person says, in a time where civic life is in precipitous decline, these institutions are incredibly important. That is to say that's an eloquent statement is an understatement of the year. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, you know, what Berkeley's done now is they've made it where there's no reason to go to downtown Berkeley unless you live there. And that's a shame. It used to be such a vibrant community. I mean, there used to be so much activity and nightlife, and, you know, and now it's just sterilized. It's sad.
And for those who don't know, it's just literally it's part of the university community. The Oxford Gate is just a couple of blocks away up the street, and you can go in there. I've done it thousands of times. When you get off the train to go to Cal games, you literally pass by it, and you come by it to go to BART. So, hey, look, it's there, and it's a proud part of Berkeley's history, indeed Bay Area history, that should be preserved, and it can be remember this, folks, and I want you to remember this. Look it up. AB 464. Mullin, that's Mullin. That's the legislation passed in 2021. And have a look and say, hey, look, how come we're not using this legislation, folks? All right. You should be jamming this down the throat of every single council member, city manager, everybody. They should explain why this is not used and explored. It's a crime that this is sitting there unused, but that's precisely what's going on. AB 464 Mullin. Read it, learn it, memorize it. Mark my words. Should be used.
Okay, I will read it. I'm not familiar with it.
Yes, familiarize yourself with it. Hey, by the way, speaking of familiarization with something that can save it, on my channel, I interviewed the author of the actual author of the bill is Barbara Lopez, who's a wonderful person. And all you have to do is you can go to YouTube and go to my channel, or just type AB 464 and then Mullin and then Zenny 62, and then it will take you right to right here, and I'm going to show you where that is right now as I present the screen, and it's here. Boom. See at the top. This is Barbara Lopez, my friend, talking about it, and listen to her. Get the favorite beverage. She's the lady that did it. And she can be a wonderful spokesperson too for Save the UA Theater as well. But she's a wonderful, wonderful. Barbara Lopez is the person that pushed AB 464 Mullin into existence and got it passed in January 2021. Yeah, definitely.
Great.
All right, folks, go to Alan's Theater. You got it. And my pleasure, man. Hey, don't go anywhere, Alan. I got this covered, folks. Go see Sinners at the Grand Lake Theater. And if you have any 30-second clips or anything you want them posted, send them to me at Zenny62media.net, and I'll post them of the Grand Lake and your favorite stories or anything else. But now, thank you, Alan, for giving me the time to do this and to help get the word out in this way that I love so much.
Thank you, Zenny. Always a pleasure.
You got it.
Okay.
Don't move a muscle. I got you. Folks, that ends the stream. We'll be back later.